Hello and welcome to the 167 podcast. In today's episode, if you have ever struggled with comparison, insecurity, or not knowing who you are, we're going to be speaking about being a secure, biblical-based leader and person. Stick around. There's a saying in the Bible that everybody in your room, in a coffee shop, Hello and welcome everybody to the 167 podcast. It is so good to have you and to be with you today for another episode. Man, we are very excited about this episode. We're very excited to have a great conversation. So we just want to welcome you wherever you are watching from and listening from. You're joined by the usuals, the faithfuls, and we're ready to go.
That's right. Hello and happy day whenever you're listening to this or watching this. I'm sure that you
Happy day. Happy whatever holiday. If there's a holiday you're celebrating, happy to you.
Happy Black Friday hangover.
Oh, that's it.
But I'm sure you guys are running on the treadmill or driving in traffic or watching this on YouTube. I was listening to a couple of podcasts today. Even.
Let's go. Just drawing inspiration.
You're right. I just like driving and having information come at me.
Just always
one
learning.
Or two things stick.
Because great leaders are great learners.
Wow, love that. Yeah, I heard something that really heard it yesterday while watering our garden.
And drop it.
And it was just like, bam, it was just revelation. He's like, the guy's saying, you don't need riverbanks if you don't have a river.
Oh, snap.
And I was like, wow, that's powerful.
A river of what?
A river of God, of God. There's no point in building riverbanks is in system structures if there's no move.
That's great.
So make sure that there's a move.
Make sure there's a move. That's awesome. That's just for free.
Yeah.
That's just for anybody tuning in.
So podcasting can really be helpful, and we hope that today's content is going to really go a long way to help you, encourage you. And we're speaking about identity today.
Yeah.
That leaders have a strong sense of identity, but I feel this goes way beyond just any conversation about leadership, but that actually we all have a strong sense of identity because we are formed in the image of God, and there is strength to that. I just think that if we can get a strong sense of that, we won't be blown here and there. But why do you think identity is so important?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have this conversation, and just for anybody that is joining us and isn't too sure about the 167, what we are we're just a conversation. We're two guys who like to have great conversation, want to be helpful, we want to add value, and the 167 is based on the fact that 168 hours in a week, and one of those is maybe spent in a church or a place of worship, but you still have a bunch of other hours where we can have great conversation. So today we want to do that by speaking a bit about identity, and I just think in today's kind of day and age, and like you mentioned there, identity really, it has to kind of form one of the starting points for any person. I wouldn't even just say as a leader, because without a firm understanding of your identity and who you are really going to give a lot of yourself to anything. I think what a firm identity does, just off the bat, it kind of, we speak about riverbanks, it helps you be focused. It helps you understand exactly what my yeses are going to be, what my nos are going to be. If I know who I am and what I'm called to, then it gives you almost the parameters and I want to say great boundaries in order to not give of yourself to something, but also not believe things about yourself that aren't true.
Good,
because you already know this is who I am. And as believers, obviously our identity starts kind of with God, and it starts with how he calls us people that don't deserve his mercy, don't deserve his grace, but he calls us sons and daughters of the Most High, which is just overwhelming and very hard to understand, but that's the starting point. So we're already given an identity of royalty. We're given an identity of loved, of called, of anointed. There's purpose. So just with that very basic understanding, we can be springboarded into what God has called us to do.
Good.
But we were chatting just before the podcast, there's things in this life and that make having a strong identity extremely, extremely difficult. And I wouldn't be surprised if we ever just heard some of the strategies of the enemy. If one of those strategies were just attacking, going for the jugular of the identity of people, making people believe all the falsehoods, all the lies about their identity, because I think that's how you can derail somebody
100%.
from calling and from purpose. And great leaders who are on track to do something amazing, you can just get them to believe a couple of things that aren't true about who they are as people. You can derail everything. Yeah. We've seen that.
Yeah. I think it's a huge issue of identity. Like, I think there's so much identity confusion in the world today, and it stems from in very unique and interesting ways in different environments. But if you don't have a strong sense of identity, I think you fall for many things.
Yeah.
I think you spend a long life wishing you were somebody else. And you can't love other people if you can't love yourself well. And listen, that's a battle that I find that's one of the big battles of life, is to believe the right thing about who you are. I think it's easier to believe the best about others. I think that you struggle to believe the best about ourselves. And I think that's the battle. I think that if we're not confident in who God's made us and who we are, we're always going to spend time being a copy of someone else instead of a brilliant original.
Because what do insecure people do? They look at something, or they look at a person, or they look at an organization that looks on the outside. Okay, that's who I want to be, and that's what I want to do. And then you just try your best to imitate and to copy. And then I remember Pastor Obed Martinez came and spoke at a conference. I just remember he said this line. He said, God can't bless a shadow. He blesses a person. So if you're spending your whole life trying to be like somebody else or something, you become their shadow. God can't bless that. He wants to bless who you are, and he wants to bless what you're doing. And you spoke about it just before we went live, so I'm going to steal it.
Go for it, yeah.
You just spoke about the first thing that God did with Jesus at the beginning of his ministry. So before the public ministry started of miracles and the calling of the disciples and all those things, the first thing he did was affirm his identity.
Yeah,
got baptized, and then he said, this is my son with whom I'm well pleased and I love him.
Yeah.
Before he did anything. Now even that, like, we live, I think, in a very performance based culture.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start achieving, you start doing well. The Springbok rugby team won the World Cup. Hey, we're all Springbok fans again. Before that, it was tough to speak about them. We live in a culture where if you do well and achieve, it's like we want to affirm that and praise that, which is understandable. But when we speak about an identity and a God identity, but before Jesus even did really what he came here to do, there was this: I love him, and he's my son, and I'm so pleased with him. I'm so pleased with my son, and that we need to get that kind of idea and that truth, that biblical principle in our heads, to just start off with that. We are pleased and we are loved by God, to start off with, before you do the thing. And I'm sure there's amazing things that God has set out for us all to do. Yeah. But before you even accomplish that, before it becomes an Instagrammable moment or a story that you can put up that people can like and share, before you do that, there's already this is my son, this is my daughter, I love them, I'm very pleased with them, and I'm just so keen to just see what happens in their life. And that has been, I know for us, we've got different journeys, but if you don't understand that, again, you're going to look for it, like you mentioned, imitation. So even for me in my identity journey, I would say that would be it. I would look at people and I would look at things, and maybe there were parts of my life that were missing. I hadn't had God's kind of work and grace in those areas of my life. So again, my identity was formed. I just looked around and people that I thought, that's what I want, or that's the life I want to live. You copy it and you try to be like, and you try to be somebody else. But then again, when it's not you, you make way and you make space for other things to come in.
Good.
Things that because if you don't know who you are, you will, because you don't understand that actually, no, that's not who I am, or that is who I am. And then you've got a lot more yeses and a lot more no's, and then a lot more no's and and it just, there's no consistency.
100%.
And it took me years to begin to understand. Okay, like Phil. This is Phil.
Peeling the layers of the onion.
I'm like Shrek. Ogres have layers. Phil has layers. We all have layers. And it took me years of just making a lot of mistakes and doing a lot of things that at the end of it, you can, after you've done it, you can almost say, geez, that's just not me. That just wasn't me. None of that about felt like that's what God's put on my life to do. But sometimes you got to make the mistake to realize.
And you become unhappy within yourself, I think. I think you become dissatisfied. And I think you brought up a really good point there in the fact that the difference is that we live from a place of being valued, or we're living to be valued. And if we're living to be valued, you will do whatever. No, but if you live for what is you're getting value from something, and so it's going to shape you, and which can be, you can fall in with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
You can make some bad mistakes if you believe you're worthless, and then you'll treat yourself, and others will treat you as you're worthless. But if you treat yourself that you're prized, you're loved, like God thinks the world of you, then you live with a greater level of confidence. And I think that's even what the Father did with Jesus as he was coming out of the waters of baptism, saying, "This is my son. He's nobody else. He's mine, right? And I'm well pleased with him. He hadn't done anything yet." And that's what God would speak to us as his children, saying, "Hey, I made you. You belong to me. I'm happy with you. You came out just right." And the struggle that I often face is, I'm not good enough. I've got to do better.
Yeah.
I've got to work differently. I've got to change. And I'm not saying growth. I'm talking about change parts of my personality. And even Timothy said, Paul said it to Timothy. Timothy, my true son in the faith. Right? He stamped his identity. He encouraged him. He told him to fan into flame the gift of God on his life. So it's so important that identity comes from parents.
Jeez.
And I think the reason why we struggle with a lot of identity issues is because the enemy attacks a family, and there's a very little impartation of solid identity.
Jeez.
And so the same thing with our faith in the Lord is that our identity comes from our Heavenly Father, but also comes through our earthly father and earthly mother. What are they stamping? What are they elevating? Where are they building confidence? How are they showing value? And it's not a criticism on parents, because they will also grow, and they also, like,
everybody's human. Yeah.
It's all in the cycle. But I think for us as children, we've got to keep going to our Heavenly Father for that stamp of identity, because you're not going to find identity within yourself.
No.
Because that leads to trouble. We lead off him, but then it's also good for us to encourage other people in who they are.
Yeah.
As it were, stamping or validating, in a sense, who they are.
Yeah.
And actually calling out the good things that they're doing.
Yeah.
And being willing to be okay with saying to somebody, "Listen, I don't think that's you."
Yeah.
Without enforcing it. But I mean, those are just some thoughts. I remember this. David rolls up to the battle lines between Goliath and all of Israel, and then Saul tries to chuck his armor on David. And he's like, "Listen, I'm trying this on, but this doesn't fit. This isn't
not me.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get slaughtered.
Yeah.
But if I can just be who I am with the skills that I've got, I'm quick. I'm a good shot. Like, best way to take down a giant is from like 20 meters away.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get close.
Get close. And I just love that sense of identity within himself.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And it's got to be tough to say no to things that other people want you to do.
Because it's good. Like, I have no doubt that Saul the king had some pretty sick armor.
Oh, it must have been the best.
I've got no doubt it was the shiniest, and it must have glimmered in the sun.
The Rolex of its generation.
The Rolex of armor, the Tag Heuer of armor. It would have been awesome. But David still had the security and the identity to understand that although this armor is awesome, King Saul, it's not me.
Yeah.
And again, that's also something that you develop. And mention the word security, like what you said. It's like being able to look at other people as well, and then to affirm what they're doing. Because the person who can't do that is the insecure person.
Yeah, 100%.
So what a great identity and what a firm identity and that godly confidence that we get from God gives you is not only a solid identity that's biblical, but also gives you security.
100%.
And if we're speaking even from a leadership context, you don't want to be a leader that is so insecure that you spend all your time just trying to validate yourself and making sure the people around you don't rise too much. You don't encourage too much, because then maybe someone else thinks that they're better at what you're doing, or maybe someone else says, well, maybe they should be the. It's a total ungodly fear, because what God is calling us to do as leaders, from a leadership perspective, is to focus on raising people up. If people are doing extremely well and they're winning and you're encouraging them, then you're leading well. That's a part of the leadership thing. But insecurity in today's world is huge. And again, we were mentioning it, to be a secure leader today it's tough because there's a lot of things that are drawing you to the king of stealing joy, which is comparison, and just having a look around. What's this guy doing who's leading a church in a similar area, or what's this businessman doing who's at a similar age, a similar season in life? And if it looks like on appearance that they're doing a lot better, or they're further ahead, what do you do? You start to downvalue, you start to degrade the work that you're doing and what's happening in your life, even though you're on a completely different story, completely different trajectory. God is doing something completely different, but for some reason we want it to just be the best in a human perspective through our earthly eyes, where God is just saying, being secure and having a strong identity, I think also gives you a heavenly perspective that what you're doing is different.
Yeah.
It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. It might not have the picture of success that you want for it right now, but if it's in the will of God, then geez, you're killing it.
Yeah.
Then you're doing an amazing job, but you can't jump. I mean, Jackie, you can't jump on social media and not feel the green
100%.
the green monster, peering over your shoulder and making you think,
100%.
geez, what I'm doing, maybe we're not doing as well as we thought we were.
Yeah. It was Craig Rochelle who said, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
To downgrade anything beautiful is to compare it to something else.
Jeez.
And I think that's so true. But look, I think we're never going to get rid of insecurity completely. I think it's always going to be part of our sinfulness, our fallen nature, right? Yeah. All of that. But there is a battle in it, and we keep after fighting it. And I think why people push others down is they don't want to share the limelight. What sets me free in that is that it's not about, I'm not supposed to have the limelight. I'm called to keep the limelight on Jesus, be faithful. That's it, right? Yeah. We're not called to hog the limelight. And so that really sets me free. But we learned that from my pastor. Like he's an incredibly secure person who's very happy to have other people around him that are growing and strong and leading. And I think if we can get that right, where we can celebrate other people and we can have joy for other people and fight the battles that come inside of us.
Because they
will be there. But I think when you fight those battles, you are actually strengthening your identity.
Yeah.
And again, I heard this the other day as well, that when your word level is low, probably your identity will be low as well. Your faith will be low. All of those things will be low. So if you get the word level up, reminding yourself who you are, who Jesus is, he's got this in the bag, you actually develop a great confidence about who you are.
That's true.
As opposed to comparing yourself to who other people are.
Yeah.
And that's been a battle for me. Oh, don't do it like this person. Don't do it like that person. And the funny thing is they're thinking the exact same thing. Oh, I don't do it like him. I don't do it like her.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, something we have to learn to navigate and try to be as secure as we can in the Lord and who he's called us to be.
It's that tension of we're human beings, but we're also spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So it's also understanding, what I feed and what I give life to is what's going to grow, and what I starve and what I try to take life,
good.
That'll die.
So good.
So you speak, put the word in you. What a great way to feed the spiritual being.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an awesome way to just affirm what God has put inside of you as a spiritual. You're a son, but you're also a spiritual son, a spiritual daughter that God has got. There's spiritual blessing. There's honor. There's all that. And even just speaking about honor, I remember I was doing an honor series, and our tagline was, "What you ascribe value to, you get value from."
Totally.
It makes me think of identity. It's like God ascribed honor to his son, and now you're getting value from it.
Yeah.
So for us as well, God he's honored us already just with identity, just by calling us sons and daughters of the Most High. We're royalty, so there can be value from that.
Yeah.
And then just what I was mentioning before, just about, what was I saying actually?
You were talking about a few things.
It left me. It left me as soon as I was talking about
it's horrible. You hate it when that happens. Yeah.
What was I saying?
It's all good. It's all good.
We roll with it.
But yeah. Has it come back?
No, it hasn't.
Okay. Shall we
when
go
it does, I'll jump back to it.
Shall we go into the social media world? Because I think that's an important conversation for us to have, especially as it relates to the current generation.
Yeah.
I'm seeing or noticing that there's people that are on social media, and it's from young ages, from such young ages. And your identity, you're trying to form an identity with millions of other people around the world. And it was a little bit easier when social media came a little bit later.
Yeah.
So, but it's a massive battle because you're comparing everybody's best day to your worst day, or
Yeah.
and it's not going away anywhere.
Mm-mm.
I think social media ultimately is a productive and helpful tool.
Yeah.
That has a very clear dark side.
Yeah.
So how do we move forward with a social media world, trying to keep strong in our identity, realizing that there are millions of people who are fitter than us, thinner than us, more wealthy than us, stronger than us, more gifted than us.
Yeah.
How do we, what do you think, what's that journey for you? Maybe we can ask that question.
Yeah, I think even that thought, brought me back to what I was saying, just about feeding and starving.
Yes.
And it's so relevant now with a conversation on social media, because for me, I think it's about balance in a big way, because it's not like we're talking something that is completely evil or completely good. It's it has a dark side.
Yes.
And you can allow it to become something quite dark, but you can also leverage it. And it can also be something that could be quite good in your life. So I was mentioning that, we're human, but we're also spiritual. If we are just feeding the human side, if we're just feeding the flesh, what feels good and physical desire, and ignoring the spiritual side of things, which calls for a different way of living, that side it's going to become the most dominant side. It's going to be what we feel we have to do. It feels like we have got no control, but just to give in to that physical side because it's the strongest.
Yeah.
It's getting all the nutrients. It's getting all the energy. But
100%.
if you've got a spiritual side that you also, I'm gonna engage with God in prayer. I'm gonna engage in the Word. I'm gonna allow the spiritual side to also receive a lot from me. Then that side will become strong, and suddenly the voice of God feels louder. Suddenly you feel led, and you feel guided, and you feel like, geez, I've got a very clear picture of what the Holy Spirit is calling me to do. So that is something that you experience. And then with social media, I feel it's the same. I feel like if you are someone who has an addictive personality, or maybe like all of us, it's very easy to get lost in the scroll.
Yes.
And like you just start scrolling because you're bored, there's nothing happening, or you're even watching TV. The worst is we got 3 screens in front of you. I do that. Like,
same.
I'll have something on TV that isn't maybe incredibly captivating, or maybe it even is captivating. And then I've got my phone open scrolling, and then my iPad's around there, and my wife is like, what are you focusing on? Where is your attention right now? And I can honestly say, it's kind of split. I don't really know. And it's just your mind. And for me, it's this need to be constantly just captivated.
You got to be plugged in, right?
I've got to know what's happening. For me, like if there's stuff happening and I'm not present and I'm not in it, it's this FOMO. It's this
100%.
total. It totally just, it can take away so much from you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that everything is easy. I'm saying you gotta find balance.
Yeah.
You gotta find a way where and this is incredibly difficult. And I'm talking to myself here 100%. But you gotta find a way to measure screen time.
Yeah.
You gotta find a way to measure the energy and the attention I'm giving to social media, that I'm giving to TV, that I'm giving to YouTube.
It's a habit. You just pick it up. It's like,
it's so easy.
Pick it up and look.
It's so easy. And they talk about, that, I can't remember what it's called, like that notification syndrome, where it feels like your phone's pinging, but it's not really pinging. But it's just part of how you're thinking. And I do it, and I'm with you, but I know that things can get better and will get better if I'm just intentional about how I'm balancing my time and I'm balancing my energy. And you've got to be intentional, just saying, and sometimes I do this, I'm just like, I'm going to put that down, and you put your phone face down, you can switch the TV off, or even you just focus on one device. You start small, find a way to be intentional and to balance yourself with it. Because I think if you just throw the baby out with the bathwater and totally remove yourself from all socials, I think you might be missing out on something with regards to what God is doing, because we can't think that God isn't doing something in the social world. Definitely is.
Yeah, we are connecting with people. We are staying connected to what's going on in their life and what's relevant. So I get that. What's helpful for me is I've actually turned all notifications off.
It's good. It's a good way to do it.
So I don't actually. When you get that message and you think, oh, this is just a sporting update. Oh, this is, like, you stop looking at your phone, because the thing is, as you look, you start going deeper into it. And you talk about, like, you and Jean-Marie, like, with social media and all the screens. Lara actually likes to look at my social media, but she can't watch me watch my social media, because I scroll and I stop, and I scroll and I stop. She's like, how do you see everything? I said, I'm not trying to see everything. I know what I'm looking for. I'm
looking for the stuff that interests me.
Exactly. And where I think where this connects to identity is if that's my son who's playing silly on the side here, but he's so good. He's cute. He's doing amazing. Is that we can let that shape us, or everybody's outside opinion, or the comments that we get on our social media posts, or even think about like, can I post this? Can't I post this? What are people going to think when I post this? And we're so dominated by other people's thinking about us when they're not even thinking about us. And it stops us from either creating and putting something out in the world there, or it feeds something unhealthy inside of us.
But that's exactly it. I'm sure it's nobody listening, but have you ever not posted something because you thought
100%.
Maybe this won't get as many likes, or maybe this won't get as much of a reach, or whatever it is? And you mentioned that it can determine what we put out there. Man, that's a horrible way to live, and it's a tough way to live, to think like there could be something that we want to put out there, but maybe it's not as tweetable or as likable or as shareable, and we're like, I'm gonna hold on to that, or I'm gonna post it at a different time of the day. It can totally.
Or it's the other thing of like an imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I'm good enough to post this. And what people are gonna think? Oh, you're just trying to be big. You're just trying to promote yourself. You're just trying to. No, I think it's gonna add value to somebody, and it's just all those things come together, and it robs us from us expressing ourselves and being who we are.
The other pitfall, like now that you mentioned, that makes me think with social media, and it comes right back to security and identity as well, is that social media provides a really good platform for you to present a side of yourself that might not actually be true, and might not actually be who you are, because hey, you've got a window to just be. When you're hiding behind a screen, there's no type of accountability. You can post whatever you want. You can make whatever caption. You could have had the worst day, be in the worst state of mind, but put something out there that's completely different and paints a completely different picture of your life. And then you put on the social mask. And then if you're not careful, you take that mask out in public with you as well. And then no one really gets to know the real you, or what's happening behind the mask, what's happening behind. And from an identity point of view, is you need people in your life that know you and that know how you're going. That's because good. When you're not well and when you're not in a good space, someone who knows you will be like, and you mentioned it earlier, will be able to be like, hey, what's up?
Sure.
What's going on? But what social media does, it almost helps us practice putting on a mask sometimes, and helps us practice putting something out there, presenting something that's not always true. So I feel like that, just as a practical for leaders and for anybody listening and social media users, try to be authentic.
Good.
I even feel that authenticity translates better as well. So I think people who see something that they sense is authentic, they like it more. And it's something that you can relate to. Try to be authentic with your socials. And again, it's a journey in a huge way. So we're on social media. We're not going to avoid it. Let's try to be us, because I think that can also help you on your identity journey, that hey, this is me. Good. This is just authentically me, and you're going to put that side of you out there. You're not trying to be something that you're not.
Good. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And again, I think you just nailed it on the head there with all of that. Like, I don't think that social media is bad. I think it's how we use it. What it is doing is it's taking what would happen in a microcosm of 10, 20, 30, 40 people in your high school or college or workplace, and it's amplifying it. Yeah. And that whole thing of it's like, I remember that this church did a preaching series once, and the whole thing was like #struggles. And this lady, she's sitting by a table eating lunch by herself, and there's a whole crowd of people behind her. Yeah. And then she like positions the photo just right. Yeah. And takes a snap and says #lunch with friends.
Oh no. Yeah.
And that is the reality. Like, we're projecting who we think other people will like. But God likes you for who you are. Yeah. And I think he has uniquely put inside of you what he wants to bring out in the world. And when we don't live a life that is flourishing in God's opinion of us, we will rob the world of what God wants to bring.
That's great.
And that's something unique. Yeah, just unique inside of us. But so what can people do with social media? Like, how do you feel? Because you said balance.
Yeah.
And I agree. But like what do you think? like for us, when we have a great Sunday, it feels great, and then all of a sudden Sunday afternoon you're bored and you go to social media and then you see churches that have 20,000 people and it looks like this is blowing up everywhere.
Yeah.
And you go, oh yeah,
it's not as good. I think what will be great is that, and it's going to be different for everybody, because I think everybody is at a different journey with their identity. But if looking at certain things on Instagram or whatever your social media is, if it's hurting your identity, I would take a season of unfollowing, a season of just taking that out, not because what they're doing is bad and what you're doing. It's about if that isn't helping you right now, let's stop consuming that content.
Like a social media fast or a break or
just for a season, with the intention of growth and with the intention of development, because there will be a time when we're at a place with our security and with our identity that we can see other people doing amazing things, and this applies to anybody, businessmen, families.
Good, so good.
You can look at another family, think they just got it all together, they never fight, they go on awesome holidays, and they're perfect, and it can be like, well, my family, if it's bringing those thoughts out of you and it's taken your heart to that place, let's unfollow them for a while. And it's not a jab on them, it's just we want to balance our time, we also want to balance our diet, balance what you're consuming, balance those things, and then a season will come when it's actually okay to be able to do that and to not feel that way, and to understand yourself and to understand where you're at as someone that is growing, but always with the intention of growth. So for me, I would just say I love that. A great practical is, if you're going through your feed, so don't just disconnect from the world or disconnect from yourself. When you're going through a feed and you feel certain emotions arising when you look at certain posts, understand that maybe that's a trigger, and understand that maybe this church or this person or this family it's not great for me to be following them right now. So I'm going to unfollow, no hard feelings. And there will be a time.
167 followership drops from like 10 people.
We hope we're not doing that to anybody.
No.
And
but I think it's wise advice.
And there can be a season that you can return to that just for your own heart.
Yeah, I've done that.
Big time.
You've done that.
Big time.
I've done that with preachers as well.
Yeah.
Stopped listening to certain people because I started sounding more like them.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, that's dangerous.
God's given you a voice.
I've gotten a voice, and I think we all develop by learning from others, but eventually you got to come down to your true self and being authentically you.
Very good.
And I think people are attracted to others who are secure, who have a strong sense of identity.
It's the most honestly, it's like, and I say this in a non-weird way, it's the most attractive thing about a person and a leader who looks super comfortable in their own skin. It's just something it is. I love following people like that. For me, it gives you a sense of, I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's like you get a surety from it.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't know if it is, hey, you don't actually need anything from me.
Yeah.
You're okay with who you are.
You're cool.
So that's attractive.
And we're not talking about perfection.
No, of course.
Not at all.
Yeah. And look, I think a lot of leaders, I know I am, people pleasers. We want people to like us because we want people to follow us.
Yeah.
And there's this tension that comes inside of us that if we remain authentic to who we are, and that's not agreeing with your picture of us, does that mean you stop following us? Or is there enough, influence built and character and all that goes, okay, cool, like I'm okay if they don't stop, if they don't follow me, I'm actually okay with that because I'm just not the voice that they need. And that takes a serious sense of identity.
That takes a few years.
And I'm honest, like with COVID, that's been a huge struggle with people going, whoa, like there's just so many other voices out there. And you can go, oh no, they don't like, no, it's not that they don't like you. It's just yours isn't the voice that they're looking for anymore.
Yeah. I think some people made a few mistakes in the COVID season with regards to that.
For sure.
Because there's other elements to it, but you're 100% right. It takes a secure leader to understand that it's different. And I mean, even just on that, being a people pleaser, being a yes man, you think you're keeping everybody happy, but out of personal experience, I think you're upsetting way more people.
Yeah, long term, for sure.
Long term, you're upsetting because if you're just saying, like, even just, I do this sometimes with plans, and I genuinely want to hang out with a bunch of people. I'd love to spend time with different people. So when the plans are being made, it's sure, but you only have so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
There's other things you need to do. You need to rest. You spend time with your family. So realistically, you can commit to one, maybe two things, and then you're letting down down. 6 or 7 other people, and it all comes down to you thinking that if I say no to this person right now, they're not going to like me anymore, or they're not going to want to be a part of what we're doing, which I think is unbiblical, because people are understanding. They do realize how things work, and they do realize how people's lives work, but it stems from, we talk about security, it stems from just an insecure, not secure in identity. People are going to be with you, and if they don't want to be with you, it could be another reason, but you don't have to say yes and be this people pleaser in everything.
Because I think you're going to end up bending your knee to whoever is ruling your life.
Yeah.
You're going to bend your knee to someone else's opinion of you, when in fact it's only the word, it's only Jesus, the King, the Word of God that we bend our knee to, that we allow to shape us. And sometimes it's like, oh, I'm a child of God, that's amazing, but I don't like the way that I speak, or I don't like, that's a weakness of mine. I want that person's strength. I don't want my weakness.
Yeah.
Or my strength doesn't seem as cool as somebody else's strength.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, again, like you're saying, like, let's build from a strong place, knowing that actually we add value.
Yeah.
And not try and please everybody, thinking we have to be everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's possible.
It can sound generic, but you are doing well when you are doing you. When you are bringing it back. And I mean, even this Sunday, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because
I like that.
Because I'm obviously preaching on Sunday, so I've done some.
You got a little something in the pot there.
Done some prep work, so
nice.
Excuse me. But even in 1 Peter 4, right at the end, Peter decides to speak about spiritual gifts. Right at the end of the chapter, and the whole book of 1 Peter is about encouraging the believers to stay encouraged and to stay focused in the midst of persecution, obstacles, and trials. But he decides to take verses to speak about gifts and speak about the spiritual gifts that God's placed inside of people, which I think is crazy, because he understands how important it is that even in tough culture and tough circumstances, we still need to be doing what God has called us to do, and we can only do that well when we understand that we are gifted to do specific things. And then he made it real simple. He said that if it's speaking, then speak. If it's deeds, then do. And he basically was just summarizing all of the many spiritual gifts that people can have. And I just thought, I really want to speak about that, because
that's good. I like that.
Because from a point of view of people, and we hear stuff spoken about spiritual gifts, but I think even right now, Peter understood that when these believers are doing what they're called to do, when these believers understand that them specifically, by God's grace, there's a gift inside of them to serve and to love people, either through doing something or through speaking or saying something. When they do that, they're accomplishing the purpose and call that God has for their life as people.
Yeah.
So for us, it's okay, if we're gonna understand and try to summarize everything when it comes to being a secure leader, it's to understand, like, here it is, here's the truth. You have something that by God's grace, only you do really well.
That's so great.
And as long as we're insecure, as long as we're comparisоning, as long as we're trying to copy, that thing that we do really well is always going to be blurry. It's going to be murky,
and you're not going to enjoy it.
You're not going to. It's the passion and the fire that ignites in your heart about that thing. God is so smart where he'll often, or always, I feel that he'll align the gift with the passion, and then you bring those two things together, and you move and you come alive in that. For us, and as people, as leaders, we all have that. And I think the greatest moment in your life, and we've said it in church, the greatest moment, you get saved, or why you're put on what's it? It's like
it's the reason that you're saved and the reason why you're saved.
Yes.
Or something
Paraphrase. Yeah. That's it. It's that reason why.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moment that the spiritual gifts and the grace that was given, and then you start walking in that. I think that's a very special moment. It's a very special moment in somebody's life, especially as a believer.
Yeah.
Because it's a grace thing.
Yeah.
Those gifts it's a grace thing. So when you get those and you understand that, geez, this, and I'm gonna stop talking because no one's gonna come on Sunday. Oh wait, this is only gonna air after Sunday. So
you're okay. You're good.
We're all good.
I'm loving this because it's so true. It's like it's the whole Ephesians 2 verse 8 to 10. You're saved by grace, not through works, so you can't boast. It's a gift because you're a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's it.
And imagine if we would live with the revelation that we're actually a masterpiece.
It would be a game
We're
changer.
unfinished, yes. We're a work in progress, yes. We're actually a masterpiece.
It would be. There'd be a momentum and a wave within the church and within believers that wouldn't be stopped.
Even just saying that, I just feel this weight lift off me.
Yeah.
Just saying that now. I hope that our listeners and the guys that are watching just go, I don't know if I believe it, but I'm a masterpiece.
Here's the challenge. It's every day.
Every day.
It's every day. So right now we're having an inspiring conversation.
Good. Yeah.
So we feel it like in our bones, and maybe we feel it again on Sunday in our bones. Then Tuesday or Wednesday rolls across, and there's a couple of things. So it's the daily. It's that's why you speak about feeding the spiritual, engaging with God's word. It's every day. It's like it's a great, even in your prayer life. God, thank you for creating me perfectly and wonderfully. That I am a masterpiece, even when it doesn't look like it or feel like it, or the things that my hands are currently doing isn't succeeding the way I thought it would, not how it should, how I thought it would. That still, I can still be reminded that me as a person, I'm a masterpiece.
Good.
And I think that brings that biblical security, reminds us again of our identity, that God loves you before you do what you do. I'm sure he's stoked with the awesome things that we do.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's proud, just like any dad.
Yeah.
But even if those things didn't come to fruition as people, the word says that he loves us.
100%.
That should form the identity.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm really hopeful that the church gets to speak more into the space of identity, because of the level of confusion that's out there. And sin brings confusion. So I'm going to put it right out there. Not having a clear identity, or, issues of gender, or issues of wanting to change parts of myself. Those are dangerous waters, because they bring about confusion.
Yeah.
And we're letting our insecurities drive our decisions, which leads to more confusion. But the word of God cuts through all of that and says, you are my son. You are my daughter. I am well pleased. And it feeds us. We come alive to ourselves. I remember, is it C.S. Lewis possibly who said that we only really know ourselves when we know Christ. We become our true selves when we find him. And I'm hoping that the church is going to be full of people who have strong identity, because then the world's going to go, you know what, I'm living in confusion, but these people are in serious clarity.
Isn't there an attractiveness about clarity and
massive
certainty?
And just being secure, being able to love people without being threatened by them. Like, and this is stuff that I deal with all the time, but it would be a beautiful vision, a beautiful picture of what the church would look like, I think. And I hope this would go a long way to even maybe just speaking and peeking behind the curtain there and saying something that should bring people
closer.
Revelation. Yeah.
I think, as we close, I think it's very important for people to know that the confusion that the world is facing and people are facing is not from God. It's not biblical. So when we look around and people are changing the way that they view themselves, view their gender, view anything about themselves, when all this confusion, all this uncertainty, that is not something that we aspire to as believers or as Christians. We aspire to a very clear biblical plan for us as believers, and also for our journey and our purpose in life. So we need to aspire for clarity and for what God is calling us to specifically. So let us understand the gravity of the problem, but let's not be discouraged by the problem, and let's be reminded that, if it's over our head, it's still under his feet. God is still in control. But let's be very clear on the fact that there's a lot of things that aren't in line with God's call, and in a completely non-judgmental, completely loving way, we want to help people.
Good.
And we want to lead by example.
Good.
And we want to have that in our own lives.
I love that. That's so good. Well, I think that's pretty much all we've got time for today. And I love this conversation on identity and just being secure in our identity and loving ourselves and loving our identity. And if this has been helpful to you, or maybe you know somebody who would really get value out of this, please share it with them, like it, subscribe. It helps us on all of our different channels. And then I just want to take a moment to invite people, if you're part of our community and you enjoy what we put out here, we have created an online community for our church called Circle Community. It's very early days in that community,
but we already have a bunch of people joining.
There are people joining, and it's sort of a hub for content and connection. So you're going to be hearing more of our content that can help you, inspire you, give you practical areas of growth, and connect with other people in the broader church community. And so we will drop a link into
Let's do that.
into the description of this video. Sorry for the guys that are getting this on audio. I don't know if there's a way to get a description there, but it'll also be on our website pretty soon. And so just check out for that, look out for that. And we want to invite you and just continue the conversation with you there.
You won't regret it. The digital space. Well, listen, God bless you guys. Thank you so much for joining and being a part of the 167 today. We will see you soon. Cheers.